My phone buzzed at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. It was Mom, crying so hard I could barely understand her words. "Your father's account, the money's gone, Michael. $23,000 just disappeared." I'd been the family's unofficial financial guardian for 15 years. Dad had early-stage dementia, Mom couldn't balance a checkbook to save her life, and my younger brother Derek had always been too busy with his startup dreams to help with the boring stuff like bills and bank statements. Guess I knew why now. I threw on jeans and a flannel shirt, grabbed my coffee, and drove the 45 minutes to their house in Millerville. The whole way there, my mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it was a bank error. Maybe Dad had made some confused purchases online. Maybe Mom had misread something. But deep down, I already knew. The sick feeling in my gut told me everything. Mom met me at the front door, still in her robe, holding a stack of bank statements like they were contaminated. "I don't understand these numbers, Michael. Can you look, please?" I sat at their kitchen table, the same oak table where I'd done homework 30 years ago, and spread out the paperwork. What I saw made my blood run cold. Systematic withdrawals over 8 months, always just under the daily limit. Always on weekdays when Mom would be at her book club or grocery shopping. Always leaving just enough in the account to avoid overdraft fees. "Where's Derek been lately, Mom?" She wiped her eyes with a tissue. "Oh, you know Derek. He's been so helpful, coming by twice a week to check on us. Takes your father to his doctor appointments when I can't drive. Such a good son." "Such a good son." Right. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to pay my own mortgage and still sending them $300 a month for groceries, St. Derek had been making himself indispensable. The perfect cover for the perfect crime. I pulled up the bank's website on my phone and logged into their account. The withdrawal pattern was clear as daylight once you knew what to look for. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. The same days Derek supposedly came by to help. My phone rang. Derek's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Mike," Mom called, said something about the bank account. Probably just some confusion, you know how she gets. The casual tone. The dismissive comment about Mom. The immediate deflection. I'd heard this voice before when Derek crashed Dad's truck at 16 and tried to blame black ice. When he borrowed $2,000 from Mom's Christmas fund for a sure-thing investment that vanished overnight. When he promised to pay back every penny and then changed his number. But this time was different. This time he'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "Yeah, Derek, I think we need to talk." "Where do you want to meet?" Derek asked, still playing the concerned brother angle. "I can swing by Mom and Dad's place around lunch." "Number." I kept my voice steady, professional. "Let's meet at Murphy's Diner." 1 o'clock. Murphy's was neutral ground, a place where Derek couldn't charm Mom into taking his side or confuse Dad with his elaborate explanations. Just him, me, and the truth. I spent the morning documenting everything. Screenshots of every withdrawal, dates cross-referenced with Mom's calendar, even photos of the bank statements. Derek was smart, but he wasn't that smart. He'd left a trail a blind man could follow. At 12:30, I drove to Murphy's and claimed a corner booth where I could see the parking lot. Derek rolled up at 1:15 in his leased BMW, the car he claimed he was house-sitting for a friend. Another lie in a lifetime of lies. He slid into the booth wearing his usual uniform. Expensive jeans, designer t-shirt, and that $1,000,000 smile that had been getting him out of trouble since kindergarten. "Mike, good to see you, brother. How's Janet? Kids doing okay?" "Cut the shit, Derek." His smile flickered for just a second. "Whoa, okay, rough morning, I get it. Mom's really stressed about this bank thing, huh?" I opened my folder and placed the first bank statement in front of him. Then the second. Then the third. His face went from confusion to recognition to something that looked almost like relief. "You want to explain these?" I asked, pointing to a withdrawal dated last Tuesday. "This one's for $800. Same day you took Dad to his cardiologist appointment." Derek leaned back in the booth, running his hands through his hair. For a moment, I thought he might actually tell the truth. Then his lawyer brain kicked in. "Mike, listen, I know how this looks, but it looks like theft." "It's not theft when it's family helping family. Dad told me to take what I needed. You know how confused he gets with money. I was protecting him from making bad decisions." The audacity was breathtaking. Dad barely remembered what he had for breakfast, but apparently he was lucid enough to authorize $23,000 in withdrawals. Derek had always been a good liar, but this was insulting. "Show me the power of attorney." "What?" "If Dad authorized these withdrawals, show me the legal documentation." "Power of attorney, written consent, something." Derek's jaw tightened. "I don't need to prove anything to you, Mike. I'm doing what's best for the family while you're playing accountant." That's when I knew I had him. And that's when I decided he was going to pay for every penny he'd stolen, plus interest. The waitress approached with coffee, but I waved her away. This conversation was just getting started. You know what, Derek? You're right. Maybe I am just playing accountant. I gathered up the bank statements and slid them back into my folder. But accountants notice patterns, like how these withdrawals always happen when mom's at her Tuesday book club and Thursday grocery runs. Derek's face went pale, but he kept up the act. Mike, you're being paranoid. I help them because I care, not because... Or how about this pattern? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken that morning. Dad's medication schedule. Every Tuesday and Thursday, you're supposed to give him his pills. But look at this pill organizer. Tuesday's compartment was still full yesterday. So was Thursday's from last week. His mouth opened, then closed. The golden boy was finally speechless. You weren't taking Dad to doctor appointments, were you? You were waiting until Mom left, coming over to use Dad's ATM card, and leaving him alone with his medications unmanaged. A man with dementia, Derek. Our father. Derek's defensive posture crumbled. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time in 30 years, I saw something that might have been shame cross his face. It's not what you think, Mike. I was desperate. The startup needed bridge funding, just temporary. $23,000 is temporary? I was going to pay it back. The Series A funding was supposed to close last month, but the investors got cold feet. I just needed more time. There it was, the same story he'd been telling since high school. Just a little more time, just a temporary loan. Just trust me, I'm good for it. But this time, he'd stolen from a man who couldn't even remember his own address. What startup, Derek? The one that's been almost ready to launch for 3 years? The one that exists only in your head and your bank account? He started to argue, then stopped. We both knew the truth. There was no startup. There never had been. Derek had been living off borrowed time and other people's money for years. And when his latest girlfriend kicked him out and his credit cards maxed out, he'd targeted the easiest marks he could find, our elderly parents. I stood up from the booth and dropped a $5 bill on the table for my untouched coffee. Here's what's going to happen, Derek. You're going to pay back every penny you stole, with interest. Or I'm going to the police, the bank, and Adult Protective Services. Derek grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Mike, wait, we can work this out. Family doesn't call the cops on family. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. You stopped being family the minute you stole from Dad. But I didn't go to the police. Not yet, because I had a better idea. That evening, I sat in my home office with a bottle of beer and my laptop, digging deeper into Derek's web of lies. If he thought $23,000 was the end of it, he was dead wrong. I learned long ago that when Derek stole, he stole big. I started with social media. Derek's Instagram was a masterpiece of fictional success. Photos of him at expensive restaurants, designer clothes, weekend trips to ski resorts, all funded by our parents' retirement savings, apparently. But it was his LinkedIn profile that made my blood boil. Chief Executive Officer at Pinnacle Innovation Solutions, it read. Leading cutting-edge fintech disruption with Series A, funding secured. Series A funding secured. The same funding he'd just told me fell through. I clicked on his company's website. Professional design, stock photos, buzzword-heavy descriptions of services they definitely didn't provide. The whole thing was an elaborate fantasy, probably built to impress investors and girlfriends. Then I found something interesting. Derek's business bank account was linked to his PayPal for client payments. Public transaction history showed regular deposits from something called Millerville Senior Services, LLC. I'd never heard of that company, but I recognized the amounts. They matched withdrawals from Dad's account almost perfectly. Derek hadn't just been stealing from our parents. He'd been laundering the money through a fake company, probably to avoid tax liability. This wasn't desperate borrowing. This was premeditated fraud with a paper trail that led straight back to identity theft and elder abuse. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Lisa in Denver. Mom called crying about money problems. What's going on? Lisa was 2 years younger than me, a nurse practitioner with 3 kids and a mortgage. She sent Mom $50 every month and called every Sunday without fail. She deserved to know the truth, but she also deserved to hear it from me first, not from Derek's spin machine. I called her and explained everything. The theft, the fake company, the abandoned medications, the whole sickening mess. Lisa listened in silence until I finished. That son of a bitch, she whispered. Mom thinks he's some kind of saint, and he's been robbing them blind. It gets worse. I think he's done this before. The pattern's too clean, too systematic. This isn't his first time. What are you going to do? I took a long pull from my beer and stared at Derek's fake LinkedIn profile. I'm going to destroy him. Legally, financially, and socially. But I need your help. Lisa didn't hesitate. What do you need? Trust me for about 2 weeks. Don't tell Mom and Dad what we know yet. Let Derek think he's gotten away with it while I build a case that'll put him away for years. Michael, are you sure about this? He stole from Dad, Lisa. From a man with dementia. He's not our brother anymore. He's a predator who happens to share our DNA. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. I had investigating to do, and Derek's trail was getting colder by the hour. My first stop was the Millerville County Recorder's office. If Derek had registered Millerville Senior Services, LLC, there would be paperwork. Sure enough, the business was filed 6 months ago with Derek listed as the sole owner and operator. The business purpose? Elder care consulting and financial management services. The audacity was breathtaking. He'd literally created a fake company to steal from elderly people, starting with our own parents. From there, I drove to Dad's bank. I'd been handling their finances long enough that the branch manager, Carol Henderson, knew me by name. Carol was in her 50s, a no-nonsense woman who'd been watching Derek's withdrawals with growing suspicion. "Mr. Patterson, I'm glad you're here," she said, closing her office door behind us. "I've been wanting to discuss some irregularities in your parents' account." "What kind of irregularities?" "Well, the withdrawal pattern was unusual. Always just under daily limits, always during business hours, always with the same ATM card. But what concerned me was the timing." Carol pulled up the account history on her computer. "See here, every withdrawal happened within 30 minutes of your father's Social Security deposit hitting the account. Someone was monitoring that account very closely." My stomach turned. Derek hadn't just been stealing randomly. He'd been tracking Dad's income and timing his thefts for maximum impact. This was professional-level financial abuse. "There's something else," Carol continued. "Last month, someone called asking about increasing your father's daily withdrawal limit. Said it was for medical expenses. I refused because your father would have needed to come in personally to make that change." "Someone called? Male voice?" "Yes. Said he was your father's son and had power of attorney. When I asked for documentation, he hung up. I thanked Carol and asked her to flag the account for any unusual activity. Then I drove to the police station, but not to file a report. Not yet. I needed to talk to Detective Ray Murphy, an old high school buddy who worked financial crimes. Ray listened to my story with professional interest. "You've got a solid case for elder abuse and identity theft," he said. "But if you want to nail him completely, you need more than just your parents' account." "What do you mean?" "Guys like your brother don't usually start with family. They work their way up to it. If he's running this fake elder care company, he's probably got other victims." Ray was right. Derek's operation was too sophisticated to be a first attempt. Somewhere out there were other families, other elderly victims who'd trusted the wrong person with their life savings. That's when I realized my revenge wouldn't just be personal, it would be justice. Ray gave me a contact at the state's Adult Protective Services Division, Sarah, a caseworker who specialized in financial exploitation cases. When I called her, she agreed to meet me that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. Sarah was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, but she had the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much human cruelty. I laid out Derek's operation, the fake company, the systematic thefts, the targeting of dementia patients. "Mr. Patterson, what you're describing fits a pattern we've been tracking," she said, pulling out a tablet. 3 other families in this county have reported similar thefts in the past 8 months. Young man, very charming, approaches elderly residents offering financial management services. My blood ran cold. Same guy, different names each time, but the same M.O. Always targets people with cognitive decline, always operates through fake LLCs, always disappears when families get suspicious. She showed me photos from security cameras. "Does this look familiar?" It was Derek. Different haircut, different clothes, but definitely my brother. In one photo, he was walking out of a bank with an elderly woman who looked confused and frail. "That's Mrs. Eleanor Hutchins," Sarah explained. 87 years old, early Alzheimer's. Her grandson reported $12,000 missing from her account last month. She kept talking about a nice young man who was helping her with her finances. I stared at the photo, feeling sick. This wasn't just about our family anymore. Derek had turned elder abuse into a business model. "How many victims total?" I asked. "That we know of?" 4, including your parents. "But there could be more who haven't reported it yet." Sarah leaned forward. "Mr. Patterson, we need to stop him before he moves to another county. These predators usually work an area until it gets too hot, then disappear." "What do you need from me?" "Evidence, lots of it. And we need to catch him in the act." That's when I had my idea. It was risky, maybe even stupid, but it would give us everything we needed to put Derek away for years. "What if we set a trap?" "Use my parents as bait?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. That's dangerous. If something goes wrong, he's already stealing from them. At least this way we control when and how. I pulled out my phone and showed her Derek's text from that morning. Mike, thought about our conversation. Maybe we can work something out. Can I come by Mom and Dad's tomorrow? Derek was getting nervous. He wanted to smooth things over, probably spin some new lie to buy himself time. But instead of damage control, he was walking straight into a trap. I'll need to coordinate with the detective, Sarah said. And we'll need your parents' consent. Leave that to me. That evening, I sat at my parents' kitchen table again, this time with Lisa on speakerphone and both Mom and Dad across from me. The conversation I was about to have would shatter their image of Derek forever, but they deserve the truth. Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something about Derek and your missing money. Mom's face crumpled immediately. Oh, Michael, please don't say what I think you're going to say. Derek's been stealing from you. Systematically, for months. I have proof. I spread out the bank statements, the fake company registration, and photos from other crime scenes. Dad stared at the paperwork with confusion, but Mom understood immediately. Her hand shook as she picked up the evidence of Derek's betrayal. But he's been so helpful, she whispered. The doctor visits, the errands. He wasn't taking Dad to doctor visits, Mom. He was using those days to steal from your account while you were out. I showed her the medication organizer photo. Dad's been missing his pills because Derek wasn't actually here. Dad suddenly spoke up, his voice clearer than it had been in months. I knew something was wrong. I kept asking him about my pills, and he'd get angry. Tell me I was confused. The clarity in Dad's voice broke my heart. Even with dementia, some part of him had known his son was betraying him. Lisa's voice came through the phone. Mom, there are other victims. Derek's done this to 4 families that we know of. Mom, aged 10 years in 10 seconds. What do you want us to do? Tomorrow, Derek's coming over. He thinks he can talk his way out of this, maybe convince you to keep quiet. Instead, we're going to let him steal one more time, with the police watching. Absolutely not, Mom said firmly. I won't use your father as bait. Mom, he's already stealing from you. This just lets us catch him red-handed with witnesses. Detective Murphy will be parked outside, Sarah from Adult Protective Services will have recording equipment, and I'll be here the whole time. Dad reached across the table and took Mom's hand. Margaret, if this stops him from hurting other people like us, we have to do it. The determination in Dad's voice surprised everyone. This was the man I remembered from my childhood, the one who'd taught me right from wrong, the one who'd never backed down from doing what was necessary. What exactly do you need us to do? Mom asked. Act normal. Let Derek think he's convinced you that everything's fine. When he asks to help with your banking, say yes. We'll handle the rest. Mom looked at Dad, then back at me. And after tomorrow? After tomorrow, Derek goes to prison where he belongs. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzly. Detective Murphy parked his unmarked car across the street at 9 a.m., and Sarah arrived at my parents' house 30 minutes later with a briefcase full of recording equipment. The plan was simple. Let Derek hang himself with his own words. I helped Sarah place a tiny wireless microphone under the kitchen table and another one behind the family photos on the mantel. The equipment was so small it was virtually invisible, but powerful enough to pick up conversations throughout the main floor. Remember, Sarah coached my parents, act natural. Don't try to trick him into confessing. Just let him do what he normally does. If he asks for bank information or wants to help with finances, don't refuse, but don't make it easy either. Mom was nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring. Dad seemed more focused than he'd been in months, like having a mission had sharpened his mind temporarily. My phone buzzed at 11:15. Derek, running a few minutes late. Traffic's brutal. See you soon, I texted back, no problem. Mom's making coffee. At 11:47, Derek's BMW pulled into the driveway. I watched from the living room window as he sat in his car for a full minute, probably rehearsing his lies. When he finally got out, he was carrying a bouquet of flowers and wearing his most charming smile. Mom, Dad! He called out as he walked in without knocking. How are my favorite people? He hugged Mom and shook Dad's hand, then handed over the flowers like he was apologizing for missing dinner, not stealing their life savings. Derek, how thoughtful, Mom said, accepting the flowers with practiced grace. Coffee's fresh. For 20 minutes, Derek played the perfect son. He asked about Dad's health, complimented Mom's garden, and even mentioned his fake startup's progress with the fictional investors. I sat quietly at the kitchen table, watching a master manipulator at work. Then Derek made his move. You know, I've been thinking about what Mike said yesterday about your finances, he began, shooting me a sideways glance. Maybe I was being too casual about helping you guys with the banking stuff. We should probably be more organized about it. Mom looked confused. Organized how? Well, like keeping better records of when I help you withdraw money for expenses. Make sure everything's documented properly so Mike doesn't worry. Derek pulled out his phone. Maybe we should check your balance right now, make sure everything looks right. There it was, the setup for another theft, couched in concern for better organization. Dad looked directly at Derek. Son, I need to ask you something important. Dad's voice was steady and clear. Derek, why have I been missing my medications on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Derek's smile faltered for just a second. What do you mean, Dad? I always make sure you take your pills when I'm here. No, son, you don't. Dad reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a small notebook. I've been writing down when I take my medicine and when I don't. Margaret suggested it after I kept getting confused. My heart swelled with pride. Even with dementia, Dad had been documenting Derek's neglect. Derek's face went pale. Dad, you're confused. Remember, we talked about this. Sometimes you forget that you already took them. I'm not confused about this. Dad opened the notebook and showed pages of careful handwriting. Tuesday, March 15th, Derek visited, pills missed. Thursday, March 17th, Derek visited, pills missed. Tuesday, March 22nd, Derek visited, pills missed. The pattern was devastating. 8 weeks of documented medical neglect, all coinciding with Derek's visits. Mom stared at Derek with growing horror. You weren't giving him his medications. Dad gets confused. Sometimes he thinks he missed them when, stop lying. Dad's voice cut through Derek's excuses like a blade. I know what you've been doing. You come here when Margaret's gone, you take money from our account, and you leave me sitting here without my heart medication. Derek stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the kitchen floor. This is insane. You're both confused, and Mike's filling your heads with paranoid conspiracy theories. Then explain this, I said, sliding a bank statement across the table. $800 withdrawn last Thursday at 2:47 p.m. The same day Dad's pills were missed. The same day you told Mom you were taking him to the cardiologist. Derek glanced at the bank statement, then at the front door, calculating his exit strategy. But it was too late. Through the window, I could see Detective Murphy walking up the front steps. Derek Patterson? Murphy's voice came from the doorway as he showed his badge. I need to speak with you about some financial irregularities. Derek's mask finally slipped completely. The charming smile disappeared, replaced by the cold expression of a cornered predator. I want a lawyer. That's your right, Murphy said, pulling out handcuffs. But first, I need to place you under arrest for elder abuse, identity theft, and financial exploitation. As Murphy read Derek his rights, Derek looked directly at me with pure hatred. You son of a bitch. You destroyed our family. I looked back at him calmly. No, Derek, you did that when you decided to steal from Dad. The handcuffs clicked into place, and just like that, 23 years of sibling relationship ended. After Derek was loaded into the patrol car, the house felt hollow and strange. Mom sat at the kitchen table crying quietly while Dad held her hand with surprising gentleness. Sarah packed up her recording equipment, giving us privacy to process what had just happened. Mrs. Patterson, I know this is difficult, Detective Murphy said, but we'll need formal statements from both of you tomorrow. What happened here today, combined with the evidence Michael gathered, gives us everything we need for prosecution. I walked Murphy to his car. What happens next? Derek's looking at multiple felony charges across 4 different cases: elder abuse, identity theft, fraud, money laundering through that fake company. With his priors and the systematic nature of these crimes, he's probably looking at 5 to 7 years minimum. Priors? Murphy pulled out a tablet and showed me Derek's rap sheet. 2 arrests for check fraud in college, dismissed after restitution. 1 conviction for credit card fraud in 2018, pled down to a misdemeanor. Your brother's been building up to this for years. I felt sick. All those times Derek had claimed he was just unlucky or between opportunities, he'd actually been escalating his criminal behavior. Our parents were just his latest marks. Back inside, Lisa had arrived from Denver. She'd driven 8 hours straight after getting my text about Derek's arrest. She hugged Mom and Dad, then pulled me aside. How are they handling it? Dad's actually clearer than he's been in months. Like having a purpose sharpened his focus. Mom's devastated but not surprised. I think part of her always knew Derek was trouble. What about the money? Can they get it back? That was the million-dollar question. Sarah had explained that recovering stolen funds from fraud cases was complicated. Derek's BMW would be seized, along with any other assets, but most of the money had probably been spent on his fake lifestyle. The state has a victim compensation fund, I told Lisa, and Derek's going to be ordered to pay restitution as part of his sentence. But realistically, Mom and Dad will probably only see about half of what he stole. Lisa nodded grimly. At least he's going to prison. Over the next 3 days, the story exploded across Millerville. Derek's arrest made the front page of the local paper. Local man arrested in multi-family elder abuse scheme. His fake LinkedIn profile was screenshot and shared on social media. The BMW dealership repossessed his car. His apartment complex evicted him when his rent check bounced. But the real satisfaction came when I got a call from Mrs. Eleanor Hutchins' grandson. Mr. Patterson, I wanted to thank you. Because of your family's courage in setting that trap, we finally have justice for my grandmother. 4 families, dozens of friends who'd believed Derek's lies, a whole community that had watched him play the successful entrepreneur while he was actually a predator. The golden boy had finally fallen. 6 months later, I sat in courtroom 3B of the Millerville County Courthouse watching Derek in an orange jumpsuit shuffle to the defendant's table. He'd aged years in jail, his expensive haircut grown out, his gym-toned body gone soft, his cocky swagger replaced by the hunched shoulders of a man who'd lost everything. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Amanda Rodriguez, laid out the case methodically. 4 elderly victims, 27 separate thefts totaling $67,000. A fake company created specifically to launder stolen money. Medical neglect that could have killed my father. Derek's court-appointed attorney tried to argue for leniency, claiming Derek had addiction issues and needed treatment, not prison. But the judge, Honorable William Chen, wasn't buying it. Mr. Patterson, these weren't crimes of desperation or addiction, Judge Chen said, looking directly at Derek. These were calculated, predatory attacks on vulnerable elderly citizens. You specifically targeted people with dementia and Alzheimer's, knowing they couldn't effectively report or remember your crimes. Derek's lawyer had advised him to show remorse, to apologize to the families. Instead, Derek sat stone-faced, refusing to even look at our section of the courtroom where Mom, Dad, Lisa, and I waited for justice. In the case of Eleanor Hutchins, you stole $12,000 from a woman who trusted you to help her manage her medications. In the case of Robert and Margaret Patterson, your own parents, you stole $23,000 while deliberately withholding life-saving heart medication from your father. Judge Chen paused, letting that sink in. This court sentences you to 7 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, and you are permanently banned from working in any capacity with elderly or vulnerable adults. 7 years. Derek would be 42 when he got out, with a felony record and no legitimate job prospects. His fake startup empire had crumbled. His BMW was sold at auction. His luxury apartment was for-sold. Even his social media presence had been destroyed. Every platform had banned him after local news stories went viral. But the real victory came afterward, in the courthouse hallway. Mrs. Hutchins' grandson shook my hand. Thank you for having the courage to speak up. Grandma got most of her money back because of you. The other victims' families approached us too. Sarah Martinez, whose grandfather had lost $8,000. David Kim, whose mother had been scammed out of $15,000. All of them grateful that Derek's reign of terror was over. As we walked out of the courthouse, Dad took my arm. You did the right thing, Michael. Family protects family, and sometimes that means protecting them from family. Derek was yesterday's news. Today was about healing. 2 years later, I'm sitting in that same oak kitchen where this whole nightmare began, helping Dad organize his pill organizer for the week. His dementia has progressed, but he still remembers Derek's betrayal with crystal clarity. Some wounds cut too deep to forget, even when everything else fades. Michael, he says, his voice softer now but still determined. Did we ever hear from Derek in prison? No, Dad, he's never written or called. I don't mention that Derek actually did try to contact them once, 6 months into his sentence. The letter was full of excuses and self-pity, blaming everyone but himself. I threw it away unopened after showing it to Lisa. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. The restitution came through slowly but steadily. Derek's prison job paid 20 cents an hour, and every penny went to victim compensation. His seized assets, the BMW, his electronics, even his designer clothes, were auctioned off. In total, Mom and Dad recovered about $15,000. Not everything, but enough to feel like justice was more than symbolic. The real victory was subtler. Dad's medications were managed properly now, with a daily visiting nurse that insurance covered after Sarah helped us navigate the elder care system. Mom joined a support group for families of financial abuse victims and became something of an advocate herself. Lisa moved back to Millerville last year, taking a job at the hospital to be closer to our parents. As for me, I learned that sometimes protecting the people you love means accepting that some battles will cost you pieces of your soul. I don't regret destroying Derek. He was a predator who deserved prison. But I do regret that it took so long for me to see what he really was. The hardest part wasn't the investigation or the trial or watching my brother get handcuffed. The hardest part was explaining to my 8-year-old nephew why Uncle Derek wouldn't be at Christmas anymore. How do you tell a kid that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the worst? But here's what I learned. Family isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about protecting the vulnerable, even when it's inconvenient. It's about choosing love over loyalty when loyalty becomes complicity. Derek chose money over family. I chose family over a brother who was no longer worthy of the name. My parents are safe now. The other victims got justice. And Derek? Derek learned that actions have consequences, even if it took 40 years for those consequences to find him. Sometimes the right choice is also the hardest choice, but it's still the right choice.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay. Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly. Don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection. Now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. So keep your sympathy behind you. I don't need what's left undone. Sometimes losing who once broke you is how healing has begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone